Okay, welcome everybody to joint webinar with Codership and MariaDB. Today's topic is MariaDB Galera Cluster. We will have three presenters, myself, Sakari Keskitalo, Massimo Di Sarro from MariaDB, and Colin Charles. You will be all muted during the presentation, but the end of the presentation and the webinar, you have an opportunity to ask questions at the questions box below of your screen. And we will do a recording of this webinar, and you will be receiving a link to this recording as well. So let's get started with the first slide and first information. So my name is Sakari Keskitalo. I am COO at Galera Cluster Codership. And we have had a partnership with MariaDB over 10 years. And 2017, there was a really big change, and it's more intensive now when 10.1 was released and Galera was inside MariaDB back then. So now we cooperate with all levels, but especially we develop products together. Through this cooperation, we receive customer and user community feedback, new features requests, and we can prioritize the development tasks. This helps us to focus efforts according to customer and community needs. And Galera bug fixes and deployment tasks are recorded in a MariaDB Jira platform, and it can be tracked there as well as the other work with MariaDB. So, and we have a dedicated continuous integration platform for testing MariaDB Galera Cluster. All our code contributions to MariaDB Server are first tested in our continuous integration system, and after successful testing, we submit to MariaDB our requests. So this is how we work. We work on a daily basis on development, support, and sales with MariaDB, and we have several Slack channels going on every day. How do you get support for MariaDB Galera Cluster? It should come through MariaDB. They are our authorized partner. We work together. They basically sell the support for MariaDB Galera Cluster. But you can be sure that we will help you too. We are the original developers of Galera Cluster. However, we have such a tight cooperation with MariaDB that we also support any of your support requests that you might have. They come to us as well, and we have the same coders that started Galera development 15 years ago still in our team, so you get the best of support from MariaDB and from us. And the last thing what I want to say here is that don't forget Galera Manager. It's a deployment tool for MariaDB cluster that in 15 minutes you can deploy MariaDB Galera on premises or Amazon EC2, and it provides a lot of good monitoring graphs and show options for you to monitor your live Galera cluster. And with that, I'll give the floor to Massimo.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Massimo Di Sarro, and I am a remote database administrator, team lead the EMEA region. Before going through the technical detail by calling to this amazing presentation, I would like to briefly show you and talk to you about the MariaDB in terms of product and service, since the company does so much. As you know, MariaDB is a company that drives the new generation database and is used by very big company and also small company, and we reach out to billions of users through Linux distribution, and the database has been downloaded over billions of times. In terms of product, let's see, MariaDB offer MariaDB community, which is an open source database, as you know, and everybody is free to download, free to use it and report about the bug, and also they are able to request eventually new feature. There are full of plugins for MariaDB community, and there are also a pluggable storage engine that you can use it for a different use cases based on your workload. Next to MariaDB community, we have MariaDB Enterprise, which is a version of community, but the focus on more reliability, stability, and also long-term support. There are some features that are really unique inside the enterprise. And just to mention, for instance, the enterprise audit plugin, or how the encryption key are managed inside outside of the database in case you decide to use encryption for MariaDB Enterprise. Another amazing product is MaxK, which is our advanced proxy able to understand the SQL, and which is always increase the higher availability from the database that they have in front, and also be able to routing queries in a way that is suit your needs automatically, or even to every single query you can decide different routing where you want it and how you want it. We have the column store, which is our, as the name always suggests, our columnar database, and let's say you arrive where you have needs for analytics and data warehouse. The compression there is very, very strong, and you can reduce also IO disk and data size. Those MariaDB Server and column store can work together in the same instance, and this is a very very great when you can have both needs in the same instance. We have, of course, Galera, okay, with a great partnership. And what should I say about this amazing product, where you have all the nodes in the cluster, replication, parallel, and consistency across all the cluster. The product is able to identify if a node has a problem, take it out from the cluster, able to rejoin, and even repair the node if needed. Everything automatically. We have MMD, which manages databases service in any cloud you have. And in the end, we have the connectors. Okay, MariaDB deploy all the connectors for the most important language used out there. What is important is that to have the best from your database aside the product, you need also some services. And here are what MariaDB offer in terms of service. We have a technical support. Technical support is work very, very, very close with MariaDB engineer team, and like this, they have direct access to any resource they needed to fix any issues for the product we have seen before with the engineer, and they always provide guidelines and help for any issue you face on your product. Next to this, there are also remote DBA. Remote DBA are a little bit different of support because they have access to your database, and they monitor, they manage, okay, they optimize your database when needed, okay, they are there 24 hours a day in case of major issues, and there are also all the tasks that you usually have by RDBA on site but managing remotely, okay, regarding tuning, maintenance, health check, backup managing, and so on. So next to them, okay, we have a consulting where MariaDB is able to offer a different package of consulting regarding architecture, review, and design. Okay, in terms also of security audit and performance. Okay, and also we can offer even an enterprise architect dedicated to you for wherever needs you have to fulfill, and provide all sync for any activity you need across all your products on MariaDB you are using. Last is the training. Okay, we have a different option of training on site or online training to take your team up to date with the future, and teaching them how they can help with many issues with the product of MariaDB. And important is to have the task that they can handle eventually by themselves. Thank you for this listening about the product and the service MariaDB, and I give the voice to Colin for the technical presentation.
Thank you, Massimo, and of course, Sakari. Let me make sure. I think someone needs to make me a presenter. Sakari. It's okay. Apparently, I can do it myself too. All right. So here are some top tips to drive your MariaDB Galera cluster performance with, brand new features. And I think a lot of you might be regular MySQL users. And MySQL, while fine, is not MariaDB. And as I mentioned, there are plenty of new features. So why this particular thing makes me excited is because I was at the start of MariaDB Server at Monty Program for a very long time. And I've also seen the extreme growth with regards to Codership and the Galera cluster. And the entire team actually met back when SkySQL started. So I think extremely interesting for us to note. So I think Sakari mentioned Galera Manager a little while ago. And I want to tell you that Galera Manager does deploy MariaDB Server just fine. In fact, you can deploy MariaDB Server in an extremely short period of time. So if I just get out of this real quick and hop on over to this, you will see that I've actually deployed MariaDB cluster right here. I don't think this is something many of you have seen too often. And if you have, all the better. So when I say you can deploy, I can just call it a deploy fully managed EMEA cluster with, say, Ubuntu 20.04 on EC2. It's going to ask, of course, for an Amazon access key. because you can have multiple, of course. Then it wants to make sure that everything works. And it does. We'll of course pick nice little EU region. And we can go for a T2 medium. And I could do create right here. And then all I need to do is add some nodes. So I'm making a new cluster here. We'll call it E here. And we can let it deploy automatically. And I'll let this happen in the background. And regardless of what happens here, I've actually also got an instance set up, which is what we're going to utilize. All right, so back to the presentation. MariaDB Corporation and MariaDB Foundation, extremely collaborative with Galera Cluster. As mentioned, you can see everything that happens on Jira, etc. So I'd say extremely tight cooperation. A little bit more about the tight cooperation is, you actually get new features inside Galera Cluster first inside of MariaDB before they go into MySQL by Codership. Completely joint engineering, roadmaps, coding, fixing customer bugs, new feature requests, even from customers, build systems, CI, they all function. You can check out Jira. The CI systems are not accessible by everybody, not open source per se. But MariaDB's ones tend to also be, you can see them passing, etc. And backend support for MariaDB Galera Cluster. When you buy from MariaDB, you don't only get support from MariaDB Corporation folk, you also get support from, Codership if need be. So I guess the most important thing here is types of replication. MariaDB supports 3 types out of the box. It has asynchronous replication by default, where you insert into a primary and it may reach a secondary. There is no actual automatic layer framework out there. So what you can actually do is you can actually configure max scale to some extent to help you with this, which is what Massimo was mentioning earlier. And besides that, there's also semi-synchronous replication where you can insert into a primary and it will guarantee that one secondary receives it. And then there's also synchronous Galera cluster. We call it virtually synchronous because the transactions itself are not necessarily written to the node. It is what is most important is the certification must be applied to the node, and then all will be well. The transactions can be shipped later, especially when you have very, very large transactions. So what is Galera really? It's a write set replication library, so we call it WSRep. Multi-primary replication is ready out of the box. It's a virtually synchronous replication. All nodes are equal. No single point of failure. We guarantee you actually no data loss. It uses quorum-based failure handling, which is why we recommend a minimum of 3 nodes. And remember, transactions, as I said, are processed locally until commit time, then replicated across nodes throughout the entire cluster. It also uses optimistic concurrency control, where they are obviously processed independently of each cluster node, write sets replicated at commit time, and cluster-wide conflicts will be resolved with the conflict victim rolling back. No failover framework required, because if a node goes away, it can come back. We have methods to either have an incremental snapshot or a full state snapshot transfer. No split brain. Comes with full parallel replication where the secondary control is on the row level and you can apply in parallel with dictated commit order. And we are completely optimized for the cloud and WAN usage. A lot of people get confused thinking that you can't run Galera in a cloud. You can even run it cross-cloud if you like, from Amazon to Azure. as an example. Galera 4 is what comes with MariaDB Server since 10.4, which has been around for a very long time. We do have users on 10.3, and I can only say please consider upgrading so you get all the new features of MariaDB Server, but you also benefit from Galera 4, which is a much, much better protocol. And upgrading in MariaDB Server is extremely straightforward. Of course, MariaDB can help you with the upgrades. But remember, even though you are constantly reminded that you need to upgrade minor versions, like going from 10.3 to 10.4 or 10.7 to 10.8, we have seen people migrate from 10.3 to 10.6, 10.3 to 10.11. In fact, we've seen demonstrations and production users migrate from even MySQL 5.7 to MariaDB without any issue. So why Galera? Some of this we will talk about later, but streaming replication is extremely useful. We have very good foreign key support. Previously, the error logs used to be pretty filled with lots of random errors about foreign key support. It's all gone. Network resiliency. We have full-on GTID compatibility with tie-in with the MariaDB group commit. We have new right-set replication functions. So if you have an application and you can change the application, you can actually say you'd like to know what the application's last seen global transaction ID is, what the last written is, or you can even sync weight up to a certain GTID. And of course, we have some enterprise features inside of MariaDB Galera Enterprise, like non-blocking DDL. I have a slide for that. Gcache encryption means you can run your entire var libmysql encrypted. That means your binary logs are encrypted, but also the Gcache is encrypted. And this is, I think, extremely useful. We also have a little troubleshooting tool called Blackbox that will help us if you have a crash. And we have also got XA support, which can be useful if you need to use XA transactions. We also have a donor selection process, and you can also force it via WSREP SSD donor. So we actually look for donors that can perform ISTs. We look at proximity segments, etc. And we also ensure that we have primary component recovery turned on by default in Galera 4. So another extremely useful feature. We also, of course, have streaming replication. Now, why would you want to do streaming replication? Most typical use cases, I guarantee you, do not have transaction sizes that are larger than 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes. And Galera does not support anything larger than 2 gigabytes. The typical use case is an ETL operation, like a load data in file. But again, I would like to remind you that with MariaDB and MaxScale, you can have the smart query router to help you move ETL operations to column store, and you can have your transactional stuff inside of basically your MariaDB Galera cluster. But if you do have to do a large load data in file, I think this is actually extremely useful because large transactions, write sets will be too large, hard to process. Those process write sets in a single memory buffer. So basically what we do is we now fragment the transactions. So you can say you'd like to have 10,000 or 20,000 rows fragmented, and then we replicate those fragments. But before an actual commit, these small fragments are actually sent to all the nodes. And you configure this based on whatever you think is right on a per session basis. And these replicated fragments are applied in all secondary threads, preserving the transaction state in all of the cluster nodes. Streaming replication, of course, will allow your nodes to process any writes at larger than 2 gigabytes even. So we have seen many use cases where this could be extremely useful if you could either upgrade or actually turn it on. We handle poor network connections extremely well. So there is no inconsistency at all because we verify for inconsistencies. If it's diagnosed at runtime, emergency shutdown is forced. And then we also have a cluster error voting where we can decide how the cluster will react to problems in replication. So when one or several nodes have an issue to apply transactions, this feature will help tremendously. And it works extremely well for geo-distributed Galera clusters, which is very commonly utilized where people want to put their clusters across 3 data centers. This, I think, is an extremely useful feature. You have support for non-blocking operations when WSREP OSU method is set to NBO, where you can do an alter table, which is executed in shared or exclusive locking mode, create index also in shared or exclusive locking mode, drop index, optimize table operations. All of this work extremely well. Similar, very much to total order isolation, but very efficient locking. So I think if you can afford to pay for enterprise, not only do you get excellent support, you also get non-blocking DDL. And this can be extremely useful when you're doing schema changes, right? Because off the table, as well as indexing or optimize table. So if you do a schema change and you'd like to, upgrade your schema, this is extremely useful, extremely fast. So a typical use case could be you have 100 Drupal instances or 100 WordPress instances, and you need to update them all. This can ensure that you don't actually block the entire database, but you only work on the table. So, MariaDB Server 10.4 has multiple new databases for you to look at. In the MySQL database, you can actually look at the WSREP cluster members, and streaming log. So let me actually go check on our cluster that I just deployed. Oh, voila, it is fully deployed. So you have full proof that we can deploy a cluster in several minutes, really. Okay, so let's go to the console here, type MySQL. Oh, we can actually type MariaDB, by the way. And we hit the MariaDB monitor now, so select version just to make doubly sure you have what it takes. It's 10.11.7, and we can do show status like WSREP cluster. And yep, we have 3 nodes here because this is an EMEA cluster I've made. So you can see the transactions vary as well. If I use MySQL, I do show tables. You can see that we have WSREP cluster members, and streaming log. This we come back to a little later. So if I do select star from WSREP cluster. So here we've got, of course, your cluster UID, the view ID, sequence number, protocol version, and capabilities. All the members here should tell you the node incoming addresses, the node UID, cluster UID, etc. They should all match. In fact, if you are looking carefully, lib MySQL. So you see the UID is, of course, AA1 here. It's the cluster UID. If you look at the GVW state.dat, you've got all the members here ending in 12, F1, and E9. We've got 12, F1, E9. So and of course, if we select this, there should be nothing. Because we're not actually running stream replication. So this is Galera Manager for you. It's not just a monitoring solution, but it's also, of course, a deployment solution. You can see all the logs, what's going on. And, here I set up a little example here. If we want to run a quick benchmark and take a look here, so I can just run this console here screen. So you should notice now the transaction count going to go up tremendously. So CPU count has gone up tremendously. I'm happy to actually also basically stop this node just for amusement. And you should be able to see everything from a cluster-wide standpoint, what things are looking like. I can also, of course, add a chart like so we know for a fact that the cluster size here is reduced. But we also know that this is definitely running. Yep, but not running enough, so let's run it again. Let's start this up again. As you can see, the cluster size will increase shortly. We're starting to see things like flow control obviously being paused. We can see the state here, it's joiner. So this is an extremely useful tool. And of course, we had a bit of a failure here because of the extreme load. But guess what? It's going to try its best to sync and start. So again, this is the joiner. All it needs is one node to actually say it's going to be the donor, and it'll happen soon. So expect that this works out just fine shortly, because I've of course set a massive amount of load. All right, so we head back here. I recommend reading the upgrade guide tremendously. We also, of course, have full GTID support for Galera Cluster. All nodes have the same GTID for replicated events originating from the cluster. This is even true when you have a primary secondary, when you're trying to maybe migrate from a primary secondary setup, a master slave setup to a Galera cluster. And we always ensure the GTID is replicated across all nodes in the cluster. So MariaDB's GTID matches Galera's GTID. We have the ability to manually update the GTID sequence number in the cluster, which is WSREP GTID synchronous. This is very similar to GTID secno in MariaDB. And we also have much stricter execution. So if you use WSREP OSU method, we ensure that the storage engine is supported. We recommend you to use InnoDB if you can, but I presume you also know that MariaDB does use like ARIA as well, right? So as you can see, we have a fully synced node, everything connected by itself back again to each other. So I can start here. Use oops. So again, we'll switch to InnoDB, which is the MySQL tables on InnoDB. Lib MySQL. So you can actually see that there is an ARIA log here, and so ARIA does totally exist. Of course, got the Galera cache, and it is of course worth noting that MySQL performance schema and sys. So we've got here in the MySQL, if you see things like MAI, MAD, FRM, you know that using MyISAM. So, and if you look at performance schema, so if you look here, WSREP allow list, FRM, and IBD, this means InnoDB. So we can look at the use MySQL. Here you'll see that the engine is actually ARIA. So by default, as I told you, we only replicate InnoDB TDL, but we have options coming to help you. And these options actually come inside of 10.6 onwards. We have this option called WSREP mode that allows you to actually replicate ARIA and MyISAM, which could be useful for you. This can, and of course, we also have the ability to do strict replication, which is like WSREP strict DDL. So if set reject DDL statements on affected tables not supporting Galera replication. So you can turn on strict DDL, but then turn on replicate MyISAM, and it will also replicate MyISAM as well as ARIA. Extremely worth noting for you that even though MariaDB has a lot of storage engines like MyRox, etc., they don't work with Galera. We also allow you to migrate from unencrypted Galera traffic to TLS encrypted traffic without any downtime. So I'd recommend you turn it on via socket dynamic to accept both SSL and TCP connections. So it'll accept SSL first and fall back to TCP if it can't. Remember, all of these connections, etc., are fully plain text unless you turn SSL on. So turn it on if you're using the cloud. We love LTS releases, so we recommend you to use them. We also introduced things like JSON file state plus progress reporting for SSD, which is good for Maria backup progress reporting. We also have this WSREP allow list where I wrote a blog not long ago where we can add IPs that can make SSD and ISD requests. And we also got plenty of little features like, we improved the out-of-the-box Gcache size, etc. As an application, you have to make sure you have a primary key. And guess what? WSREP mode can actually force primary keys as well. I recommend you should use MariaDB only, but if you want to, you can use ARIA and MyXAM. Don't use things like lock tables, unlock. Don't do things like create user. Don't do things like insert into MySQL user. Instead, use create user because since MariaDB 10.4, there's actually a MySQL global priv table. A MySQL user is just a view on MySQL global priv for what it's worth. So I don't recommend you to be using anything like insert into directly. If you have lots of high concurrency hot rows, consider even using something like MaxScale to help you do a read-write split. Oh, I clicked the link. Don't need to click the link. Never disable the error log. In fact, if you can turn on WSREP log conflicts equals on and cert log conflicts equals on, you'll find lovely error messages like in the next slide. This is a slide where I show you how you can see a priority and a victim transaction. Galera handles everything automatically, naturally. But if you ever wanted to see what's going on, this will totally help you. It'll actually tell you which in this case was an update table one set call one some text where ID equals 100. So it tells you which node got the priority transaction, which node got the victim transaction. Extremely useful. Naturally, auto increment is something you should pay some attention to because we all love to use auto increment, but don't forget MariaDB has other features like sequences. I say click on this link because MariaDB has connectors. And one of the cool features of MariaDB Connector J is it also has failover and load balancing mode. So you can specify your entire Galera cluster IPs, and then you can tell it inside here to either do sequential load balance, also replication, and of course, I wouldn't focus on this particular thing just yet. So yeah, very useful. Also, alternative is of course to use load balancer like Galera load balancer or MariaDB MaxScale. Here, naturally, I will talk to you a bit about MariaDB MaxScale. MariaDB Max most useful features I feel are the Galera Manager, and there are nice ways to help you configure it and the read-write split. So you can actually say I'd like to send all reads to one node and two nodes, and the writes to only one node, for example, if you'd like. And also, of course, as a smart router, you happen to also use things like column store, etc. There is, of course, further reading. I didn't touch on backup as a Maria backup SSD method, but you can consider that Maria backup is also a fork of extra backup. And you can do manual SSDs as well as the Maria backup SSD method, which is extremely useful. I'd say spend some time reading the limitations page, though we spend a lot of time getting rid of the limitations for you. So that's an added bonus. So if you use something like Galera Manager, you realize that all of this is actually set up for you automatically, right? So we don't have to do anything weird. And if you did want to set it up, you're more than welcome to. And here we've got, of course, got a console. Let's go to another node. Oops. So you can see here under galera.cnf, we have some options here. So this one's all fully set up for you automatically, right? Telling you which segment it is in, what address to receive from, what address to bind to, SSL set up for you out of the box. Very, very nice, obviously. And we have the SSD method set at Maria backup, as you can see. So again, extremely useful. And automatic, by the way. And I, can't obviously talk to you about MariaDB's awesome features because that alone will take a 2 to 3 day training course by itself. But MariaDB has for a long time supported SQL mode equals Oracle since 10.3, has PLSQL support, can do sequences, has system version tables. The thread pool is very good, can easily handle 200,000 concurrent connections compared to MySQL, which doesn't have a thread pool by default. Yes, you can't benefit from the additional storage engines. And when you deploy with Galera Manager, you won't, of course, see additional storage engines. But I'd say overall, these things just work. And you should use all of MariaDB's awesome new features. And there are plenty, by the way. This is just a smattering of them. So use all of MariaDB's awesome new features inside of your Galera Manager and Galera cluster, and you never feel left out. So I guess we are open to some questions if there are any. You can ask questions in the text box from all of us, really. And yeah, hopefully we'll help you answer them. And naturally, we love doing stuff inside here. So this is an older cluster I'd already previously set up. This is a newer cluster. And if we, again, that's 15 minutes. Last 5 minutes, you can see it. You can see where I actually gave it a lot of stress. Okay, we have our first question. Is it free or is a contract required? Well, it's definitely free for you to deploy. I'm probably not the right person to answer this question, so maybe you should, rope Sakari in.
Yeah, Galera Manager is free to use. And you can download it from our website. Freely, you have to sign on for the installer. You have to give your email, but then you good to go. You have the Galera Manager installer, and you can install Galera Manager and use that to install Galera Cluster with MariaDB.
Yeah. So I didn't show you how to install it, but it's actually literally a 5-minute process. And of course, I can delete the cluster and show deployment logs. All very useful. But the most useful thing is the fact that I could, just from my web browser, log in, do stuff. I can add a bit more concurrency if I wanted to. We should be able to see a lot more stress in the entire cluster now. So you'll see the replicated bytes here, none here. But of course, we're starting to see flow control everywhere. as things are spiking. I remember that the latest version of MariaDB requires a contract. Is that still the case? Has something changed? Might be a better thing. Well, yes, actually, you do need a contract for MaxScale. Maybe Massimo can share a bit more about that.
Yes, you need it. Yes. You can still keep in touch with the sales have a good offer, but yes, for the production machine, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Simon has a question. Is Oracle Linux 9 supported? Well, Red Hat Linux 9 is supported. So is Oracle Linux 9 supported? You might want to give it a go. So if I do version help, I can do version list. So we actually no, sorry, 9 is not supported. It's up to 8 at the moment. So I guess that is something we should address. So thank you for bringing that up, Simon. OEL9. And then we have another question, I think. GTIDs are not uniform across the cluster. In 10.6, what could be the reason? That is rather odd that it's not uniform across the cluster. We set up GTID uniformity much earlier. So I can only advise that you send a bit of your logs over to me, and then I can take a look at it offline. My email address is here. So happy to look at it later. And we have, I think, one more question. Is it planned to support Rocky Linux? I don't think so. I don't know. There's an open ticket for this. I think there's an open ticket for Rocky Linux actually. So this is a great place to complain about things. So we have this support Rocky Linux option. So I don't know the answer to that, but I'll definitely put that as a plus one. A question about backup methods. Well, if you use Galera Manager, we recommend you to use Maria Backup. If you use just like you would deploy anyway, there is no backup configuration from the GUI, but nothing will stop you from running Maria Backup yourself. Literally here. Oh, is this running? So we actually ship Maria Backup, and you are more than welcome to just make a backup from here without any issue. And of course, if you wanted the console becoming full size. So I didn't enable SSH externally except from here. But of course, I can add my authorized keys if I really wanted to. And for external access, you have a SSH address with a port. And you can add SSH keys. Okay, so not quite questions about MariaDB and the awesomeness that is MariaDB, but definitely besides SSD, doing a Maria backup is the exact same way that you would do on a regular MariaDB instance. And if you don't like Maria backup, of course, MySQL dump works just as well. So also included. And you have all of these things here that are now more MariaDB oriented, but they are just links to things. Hence why I typed MariaDB earlier. Okay. Any other questions? Why does a donor become desync when it's providing the DB to a new joiner node? Yeah, it's an extremely good question, but that's actually so when there's a joiner coming, there must be one donor that desyncs so that it sends the actual change set data over, and it's still queuing the transactions, but it doesn't apply them at that point in time. And the reason why is in a database that's constantly moving, if we keep on sending transactions repeatedly, this would mean that this joiner will never be fully synced properly, and it'll constantly be in joiner state, and the donor will constantly be doing being a donor. And of course, there's elevated I/O, reduced performance, etc. So the best way is to desync the node first, let everything transfer, and then you can let it sync with the Galera protocol much easier than it is via a full-on SSD or even an IST. So it's very much like a master slave setup where you actually do like a MySQL dump to provision a new node and then let replication catch up, and it's a similar concept. So that's why the donor is desynced. Is there a separate license for just non-blocking DDL statements? Actually, it's not just non-blocking DDL statements, but it is a separate license for non-blocking DDL statements for you to use Gcache encryption and many other. Well, this is probably not what I was going for. So if we go down here, if we go to the enterprise server, we've got the enterprise Galera cluster. And of course, it does come with MaxScale. It does come with full-on Gcache encryption. There are some people that use it. And maybe the selling page can tell you a bit more. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing it. So maybe under capabilities, few more bits and bobs. This might be, unfortunately, it's comparing against MySQL, not. Yeah, but just to be clear, yes, there is a separate license if you'd like to get non-blocking operations, if you'd like to get backups. We talked about this actually somewhere here. So right here, actually. The black box, the XA support, all of that is enterprise-only features. Can we get the presentation in a file? Yes, absolutely. Sakari will have it uploaded onto the internet. Yes, it'll be a PDF. Do you provide services to do health checks on MariaDB? Well, we don't, but MariaDB does if it's a health check on MariaDB. We do services for MySQL, but yes, I believe MariaDB will happily do a health check with you. Is it easily possible to upgrade an existing Galera cluster to enterprise Galera cluster? Yeah, absolutely. You can upgrade your MariaDB community to MariaDB enterprise basically by just swapping packages. It's almost a drop-in replacement, just that you get more features. And some of these features eventually become open as well. Like I can't tell you when or what, but yeah, definitely contact your friendly MariaDB salesperson. Any other questions? Involves numbers and services. I really probably it's more Sakari or Massimo to help you. We can also, yeah, I think we might be able to wrap up. Sakari?
Yeah, it looks like good question. Good questions. Thank you so much for joining. This was a good session with you, and hopefully we meet again in another webinar or somewhere else. And please feel to contact MariaDB Codership for any questions on the MariaDB or Galera Cluster. And thank you for joining.